Hi folks, this is Haas with GNAT News. Today we're in Londonderry. We're at the Second Congregational Church and we're going to stop in and ask them about their 150th. So Lori, thanks for having us here today.
Yeah,
we appreciate
Haas,
it.
thanks for coming by. It's great.
So,
Great to talk to you about this church.
Oh, it's a beautiful church.
Yeah, thanks. We like it.
How old?
So the this structure, was built in 1840. And this structure, the building, was built as a Methodist church. So a little church history of Londonderry and South Londonderry.
Okay.
The Methodist church is in Londonderry and South Londonderry, which is just south of where we are. There were two churches. There were two churches. And the best I've been able to learn is that there were circuit riders, like the Pony Express for churches. They would come and they would appear and they would offer to do church. And the first folks who came to do that were the Methodists.
I don't know if you can answer this, but so circuit riders for church. Why wasn't there anybody living in the community that could do it? Or did you have to come from somewhere specific?
Excellent question. Some, I'm not sure I can answer that with complete...
That's okay. I'm going to ask you a lot of these bomb questions.
That's okay.
You just tell me I have no freaking idea, Haas,
Yeah.
but thanks for asking.
The answer is both and. How's that?
Okay.
There were some people who rose up from the community and felt called to stand up and lead a service. And then there were other times, other periods where people didn't, no one rose up from the community. And these circuit riders would appear and offer to do church for people. I think it's fair to say that back in the early 1800s, church was much more embedded in the social life and the social fabric than in 2018. There were Methodists that were meeting in South Londonderry, but that was an awfully far way to travel before the car. So then there were enough folks who, in what they used to call North Derry, which is now Londonderry, that they got together and they built this church in 1840. Now, for reasons that are not clear to me...
so what happened to the Methodists?
So for reasons that are not clear to me, this congregation dwindled to, the Methodist congregation, dwindled to about 12 people. And in an effort to hang on, they sold what's called the parsonage, the house where the minister lived, which is just across the parking lot.
Got it.
Trying to hold on, they sold that and it was a private home, but they still couldn't make it. And at that point, the Congregationalists had some energy and they gathered and purchased this building from the Methodists.
So, a quick question. The other church?
So the other church merged with the Baptist church.
So there were the Baptists over there. And there was this third group hanging out without a house.
This third group, they had a house in the early 1800s down in South Londonderry. But they weren't very happy either. And this kind of, happiness, unhappiness, I can't pretend to know what was going on in the mind and hearts of
in the town.
And so there's three denominations at play. There's the Baptists, the Methodists, and the Congregationalists. Now, they're all Protestant, and from one viewpoint...
They're all really the same family.
What I sometimes say is different flavors of ice cream, but very similar, worshiping the same God, same Jesus.
Do you think at town meeting they sat in different sections?
Oh, I'm sure. And they probably got upset if their sons or daughters wanted to... again, I think it's fair to say that we can't possibly understand what... the commitments people had to the denominations back then, which is not the case anymore.
Methodists
petered out, crashed and burned. The first Congregational Church in South Londonderry crashed and literally burned. I mean, that building's no longer in existence.
Period.
So then, in 1868, a group got together and said, we want to make another go of it, us Congregationalists.
And let me ask you another quick question.
Sure.
So did this building sit empty after the Methodists? Or did they hang on to the very last day and say to a group of Congregationalists that showed up, fine?
Here's something interesting. The Congregationalists had their first worship on August 19th, 1868. They didn't buy it from the Methodists until 1869. So maybe the Methodists hoped they might have a little revival. They let the Congregationalists use it for a year, which is kind of cool. But I know what you're saying. Is like, so on July 8th it was a Methodist worship, and on July 15th it was Congregational. I don't know the answer to that.
And that's where the 2 comes in.
Right, because there already was a first Congregational Church,
so
it became, and I don't exactly know when that one, it was started in either 1805 or 1809, and by the 1830s, 1840s, that had petered out. But in 1868, when this church was gathered and had its first worship, but there were still enough people who remembered the first Congregational Church that they couldn't be the first again, so they had to be the second, which is incredibly confusing, and I wish they had just called themselves the Second.
And you've kept that name just because it's history.
Because for 37 years we had the same church secretary who died when she was 100. And we thought about changing the name for about 5 seconds 10 years ago. And she said, no way. And we said, okay. You're 98 or whatever at the time.
I'll come back to haunt you.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, if you don't want us to, we won't even talk about it.
Cool, done.
So,
We're out
Florence
of here.
Potter.
That 150, does that go back to Methodist days? Or does that start when Kong II took over?
Yeah, Kong II, I like it. That starts when Kong II took over. August.
So this is even older, this building, than 150
The building
years.
is older than 150 years, but we're not celebrating the history of the building.
I got you.
We're celebrating the life and presence and ministry of the Second Congregational Church.
No mixing that up.
Well, I preached a sermon about a month ago on 1840 versus 1868. There were only about 3 people who knew that we weren't rededicating the building, but we're not.
But we're not, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a couple cool things. So what's that cool thing?
So this cool thing is the bill of sale.
The bill of sale for
the building.
So the congregational group
bought it from the They gave
Methodists.
$300 on March 5th, 1869.
They got this whole thing for $300?
Yeah, it was 1869.
I don't know, what is that? Is that good, bad?
I think that's good.
I think it's good. The cameraman thinks it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
but
take
let's just review. There was no basement. That happened in the 20s.
Okay, no basement.
There was no side entrance.
No side entrance.
Yeah.
No electricity.
No electricity, no plumbing, no furnace.
So wood stove was in here.
Yes, in fact, in the back, if we pull up the carpet, you can see the burn marks from the wood stove.
And
these pews. Yes.
Are
these
from that time period?
As far as I know, there's no record of the pews being replaced.
And the floor?
The floors. So we had these redone maybe 12 or 14 years ago, and the folks who redid them said that they're spruce. And spruce doesn't grow this big anymore.
Old forest.
Yeah, old forest and very hard, good wood for this. They were thrilled. They were just all excited to be working on these.
This is
the church, I think about the 20s. There seems to be power lines, phone lines, something. This is Route 11, which was dirt at the time. This wasn't paved until 1958.
1958.
So we know this is before 1958. What you probably won't be able to see, but the front of the church just had 2 doors, and that window, which you can just barely see on the picture, is actually now that
right
window.
there. So this whole beautiful thing used to be on the front of the building.
That's correct. And there were 2 side entrances where those 2 small windows are. There were 2 side entrances and a big, long wooden set of stairs. In doing some research, I actually didn't know we had this.
Show right out to the camera again. I'll hold it with you.
These are the minutes from the first gathering of this worshiping body.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. From August 19th, 1868.
Can you read a couple lines?
Sure. Record of the Second Congregational Church, Londonderry, Vermont, organized August 19th, 1868. In response to letters missive from a number of persons in the town of Londonderry, signed by D.H. Martin, Jesse Ryder, and Benjamin Sparrow, their committee, an ecclesiastical council, convened in the meeting house, that's this building,
right here,
in Londonderry on the 19th of August, 1868 at 1 o'clock in the
It
evening.
is. And the hat's great.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to wear my hat. Now I realize I can wear a hat in church. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Not
I
during
would've worn my
worship.
hat.
Logan's got a hat on.
Oh, he does.
I saw other people with hats.
Hello?
I saw
What
other
kind of
people with hats
upbringing
on.
is that?
Well, I didn't comb my hair today, so I had to wear a hat.
So, Lori, I just want to take this moment before we get to other things. You. So what are you doing here? Did you grow up here? Did you just find your way here?
Great question. So,
No, you only have a certain amount of time,
so make it short.
yeah, let's do the Reader's Digest version.
Okay. I was born in 1963. I grew up in a congregational church in New Hampshire, and I loved the minister that I grew up with. He was funny and warm and just a great guy.
Gotcha.
And then I went to church camp in New Hampshire, a camp run by the United Church of Christ, which is this denomination. And when I was done with college, I was like, well, I think maybe I'll try being a minister. So I went to divinity school. I went to Harvard Divinity School. And
Because you can't become a minister without going to school.
in the denomination that I am part of, the United Church of Christ, at the time that was true. There's all different paths to ministry now. But I loved Harvard Divinity School and loved going to divinity school. So then I served as an associate minister in Orange, Connecticut for 3 years because I wanted to almost have an apprenticeship. I mean, it wasn't called that, but I wanted to be with someone who had been doing it for a while.
Right.
And then for a year and a half, I taught English as a second language to refugees outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And then I decided to come back to New England, where my family is. And I came to this church in June of 2001. And I first came as what's called the interim minister, which is just sort of temporary.
Right.
But I really liked it, and they really liked me. And so in August of 2002, I became what they call the settled or long-term minister. And then in 2003, I met my husband, and we got married in 2004.
So this position you have, it feels to me like it carries a great weight in this room, that when people come here, you have this, I don't want to call it a burden, that's unfair, but they look to you for things. I mean, how does...
Well, I like, at my best moments, my best days, I hope and pray to be a conduit for God's grace. So, of course, it's somewhat about me, but it's not, at the end, it's not really about me. Buddhism has this saying, do not mistake the finger for the moon. So I hope in my best moments to be the finger, to pointing to that which is greater than all of us, whatever you conceive the divine or to be. So I mean, that's what I feel called to. I think that's my deepest responsibility. That practically speaking, that manifests itself in different ways. Certainly comfort in times of sorrow, walking with people through illness or death, joy of marriages and baptisms. I think when folks come to worship here, I hope and pray they experience a lot of joy and fun and laughter. It's not just serious.
And when you step out that door, are you done?
No, which is one of the most challenging things, especially with smartphones and texts and cell phones. No, and you have to embrace that as a small town minister. When my husband and I first got married, it was really challenging because I'd go into the grocery store, just run in for milk, and it would take me half an hour. But that's part of the deal. If you see because if you see someone whose mother's sick, Sally,
Yes.
how's your mom? Is she
Right.
okay? Or, oh, Lori, can I talk to you? You know, and
Because there's always a deeper level of conversation I can have with you than just, hey, how's your day going?
I hope and pray with every fiber of my being that people feel that.
Right.
I mean, there's been times when people have borrowed, we have tables that we loan out to people. And I remember one time someone was returning a table that they had borrowed, and I went down just to say hi, and they said, my grandmother's in the hospital. And she burst into tears. Now, I hardly knew this person.
Right.
And then she grabbed my arm, she said, I just wanted you to know.
Yeah.
And I thought, internally I was like, I don't know your grandmother. But there was something about what I represent. I mean, not just me, but you know, the worship package. Again, what
Right.
this church and worship, I hope, points to, that person needed to convey that to me. And sometimes that's hard. I mean, I take, for the past 5 years, I've taken a whole month off, a combination of what's called sabbatical and vacation time, and I need
Just to
just
get
to
back.
kind of,
My mother was a social worker, and
Oh,
she worked
okay.
with a lot of troubled children. And you could feel that from her. Like, there was a time when the need never stopped, you know, and you wanted to meet the need and you wanted to help the need. But then there were just times when I could feel my mother just had to say, I now have to shut this door, right? And just to get that, I don't know, just to get the light back.
I think it's, balance may be an overused word, but I'm very blessed in that this church, so many people do so much stuff. We have a senior lunch in the good weather, because people don't like to drive in the bad weather, and I get to attend that and help serve the food, but I don't do any of the cooking or organizing. So there's many hands make light work. There's so many people who do so much here. We have a prayer shawl ministry, and people can, it's a tangible way to say to anybody in the community, we're praying for you. And
Right.
they've been sent to Iraq and New Zealand, and people have been buried with prayer shawls. Just a way, again, just another way to convey that you're being held in love,
Yeah.
I think.
All right, so first up, I want to say thank you so much for having us here.
Huss,
We
it's
appreciate
been
it.
great. It's been great.
And
A lot
there's-
of fun.
There's one more thing, isn't there? So, the 150th, you
150th.
have activities or what?
We do. So on Sunday, August 19th, which is 150 years to the day
To the day.
that the church was first gathered, the Second Congregational Church. That morning at 9:30, our usual worship time, we're having a special anniversary worship. And we really hope folks from the community who were married here, who were baptized here, who have any historical connection will come and celebrate with us at morning worship. And then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're having a picnic barbecue.
same day.
That same
That
day.
same
Sunday,
day.
August 19th, same day. 4 o'clock up at Pingree Park, just up the road. We rented a tent. We're going to have chicken and hamburgers and hot dogs. And it's really a community celebration. It's free. And we really want to celebrate 150 years in the community, with the community. There'll be live music and games, and it's just going to be a great time.
Okay. All right. Be there.
Yeah, be there.
Thanks again, Lori.
Thank you, Huss. It's been a pleasure.